Hello and welcome to the MarinMap Map Viewer application instructional video. In today's video, I'm going to walk through map functionality and hopefully give end users a better idea of how to utilize this application. When we first enter the application, we'll be greeted with this splash screen, which is the help menu that you're seeing on the center of the application. This screen includes some application information, some general instructions on how to interact with the application, and just a broad overview of what you can expect from this application. To exit out of this help menu, we can just click this X button at the top right of that menu. And at any point when you're in the application, you can access that help information again by clicking this help button here at the top right in the application header. It's going to look a little bit different when you access it from that, but the text in the window is going to be the same text to help you utilize the application. So I'll go ahead and exit the help menu there by clicking the X at the top right of the window. To begin, I'm going to walk through some of the general map features on the main map here in the application. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to work through the search tool here, and then I'm going to work my way left to right through these header tools available to us in the header menu. So to begin, just some general map functionality included. At the very top left-hand side of the map here, we've got the zoom in and zoom out button. So as you would imagine, the zoom in zooms us in to a further extent of the map, and then zooming out zooms us back out. You can also utilize your mouse wheel and then your keyboard plus and minus to do the same thing. Below the zoom in, zoom out is the default map view, which is this little house icon here. And if I click that, it will bring me back out to that default map extent that the application loaded on. And that's helpful for if you are zoomed into a specific area on the map and then you want to get back out to that main county overview. And then below that, we do also have this previous extent button, which will bring you back to your last extent or last zoom level you were at in the application. And then we do have the next extent, which will kind of bring you back to where you were before you clicked the previous extent button. Next, I'd like to discuss the search tool. So we've got the ability to search for addresses or property IDs in this search tool. I'll do an example of both here. I've just got an example address to search here, which is 456 Belvedere Ave in Belvedere. And I'll search for that, and I will click it, and it will zoom me directly to that tax parcel tied to that address. It will highlight that tax parcel here on the map, and then it will also enable that tax parcel pop-up with some information tying to that tax parcel's information here. So I can look at that pop-up information there and see what the attribution tied to that tax parcel is. I'll exit out of there, and then I will leave my address search and clear my recent searches, and I'll go back to my default map view, and I'll show you how that property ID search works. Basically the same as that address search, but I'm just going to be searching via property ID. So I've got an example here, which is actually the same parcel I just searched for with the address. And you can see here, this is a contained search in the search bar. So if I just type in a portion of either my address or property ID, it's going to bring up all of the addresses or property IDs tied to that partial search. So I spotted my property ID that I want to search for here. I'm going to go ahead and just select that from the menu. And again, that's going to zoom me directly to that tax parcel and show that pop-up information automatically based on what I searched for here in my search tool. One thing to note with the map pop-ups here is that they will show up automatically in the center of your application, but you do have the ability to select this dock button here at the top of any pop-up on the map. And when I select that, it will dock the pop-up at the top right-hand side of the application's map. And that opens up the center of our map here to see what you might want to see in terms of what's selected on the map. And then it will also make that pop-up information a little bit larger here. So you can see a little bit more if it's a larger pop-up like these tax parcel pop-ups. And then I'm just going to close out of that. And I'm going to go back to my default map view here. So next, I would like to go through the tools we've got available to us at the top of the header menu here. The first of which is the Map Legend tool. So I'm going to click into that. And what the Map Legend is just a live view of the symbology of all of the layers that are currently turned on the map. So if there's a layer turned on in the map layers, it's going to show me the symbology of that layer and that visual representation of what I'm looking at here on the map. And you can see as I zoom in and more layers become available on the map, they're being added to the map legend here. So a very basic tool to just help you visualize what you're actually seeing here on the map. The next tool I'd like to discuss is the Map Layers tool. So I'll click into that. And the Map Layers tool is where I can control which layers are turned on in the application, as well as some other neat functionality that's available in the tool that I'll go over here. So the general use of this tool, like I said, is to turn layers on and off, but there are some caveats to that I'd like to discuss. You can see all of these layers here in the map have this little expand caret, and what that denotes is that these are group layers. So if I want to, for example, look into all of the transportation layers, I can expand that transportation group and see all of the layers that are tied to transportation that live within that group. And with these group layers, you can either turn all of the layers on in the group at once by selecting that check mark next to the group. And then once that's open, you can turn specific layers on and off that are in that group by selecting that specific layer's check mark next to it. And then if I wanted to shut off that whole group layer again, I could just choose that check mark next to the group name. One neat thing that we've got added to the map layers list here is the ability to change transparency. So we can do that again at the entire group level. So if I select the options here and select transparency for the transportation group, if you'll watch these transportation layers that are currently on, as I use this slider menu to make them a little more transparent, they'll get a little more see-through. This can be really helpful if you've got a lot of different map layers turned on and you need to kind of see through a different group to see another layer that you might be most interested in, but keep those transportation layers still visible. You can utilize this transparency tool to make them a little bit more transparent. As you can see, when I get up to 100%, they're completely invisible. And then if I bring them back down to 0%, they're back to their default transparency. You can do that as well with singular layers within a group by selecting that same options menu here. We've got that transparency option, as well as the ability to hide labels. So if you want to see the actual symbol on the map, but not the labels that are tied to that layer, you can hide the labels, or you can zoom directly to that layer, which can be helpful if you want to get to the full extent of a specific layer. You can click that zoom to button. Another thing I'd like to mention about the map layers here is that some layers will show as kind of this grayed label on the layer. And what that means is if a layer is grayed out but turned on, it is invisible at the current map extent. It's not turned on yet. There's an extent set on that layer. So if you watch this county milepost layer, as I zoom in, it will turn a little bit darker there once I get to the extent that those county mileposts are visible. Now you can see them here along this section of road. because I'm at an extent where that layer is visible. But if I zoom back out a few levels, you can see it's grayed out again, and those layers, those county mileposts are not visible. So if a layer looks like it's turned on, but this label is grayed out, it means that it has an extent set on it. So just something to be vigilant of there. Finally, within the Map Layers tool, I want to show the search capabilities. So if I come into the application here and I have a very specific layer that I know I'm looking for, and I don't want to search through all of these different groups here, I can come up to this search capability, and let's say I'm looking for the trail layer. I can type in trail, and you can see that's going to sort the map layers and show me any layer that has the text trail tied to it. So I've got that main trail layer, and then these pedestrian trails and policy trails in Mill Valley. So a nice way that you can search for a specific layer you're looking for and find it very quickly and turn it on. That is it for the Map Layers tool. So I will exit out. I'll turn transportation back off, and I'll close that. And the next tool I'd like to discuss is the queries. The queries tool is a place that you can set specific queries based on different attributes of some of these map layers that we've got available to us. So I'll walk through some of these. We've got a query available for tax parcels. So if you want to find a specific tax parcel and query it out of the other tax parcels, we can do that either by property ID here in this first menu or the street address of that tax parcel. So for my example, I'll just utilize this example from below the entry box here, and I will click Apply to run that query. You can see here that we have queried out that specific tax parcel that I was interested in. We've zoomed to it on the map here, and then that tax parcel pop-up is also showing here in the queries menu. I'll go ahead and clear those results. And my query has been cleared. You can see it's no longer, that tax parcel is no longer highlighted on the map. And I can also reset my query here by clicking that reset button, and that will remove my query entry. And I will click back out, and next we'll go through the city query. So this one's a little bit different. It's not a text entry, it's just a drop-down menu. So if I want to query out the city of Fairfax, let's say, I'll choose Fairfax from the drop-down. I'll click Apply. That's going to query out the city of Fairfax. It's going to highlight those city limits and then show me a little bit of attribution tied to that Fairfax city layer. If I want to remove that query that I've set here, I'll just click that Clear Results trash can icon in my results, and that will clear that query out. And again, I'll reset my query so it's no longer set to Fairfax. Next, I'll go through the community query, and this is going to look pretty much exactly the same as the city query. Let's say I want to go to Black Point. I can select that community name, click Apply, and it's going to zoom me to that community, show it highlighted on the map, just like it did there with that city query. Again, I'll clear my results if I don't want it queried out again, and then I can reset that search by clicking Reset. Now I can do the same thing with zip codes here. Again, it's a drop-down menu. If I have a specific zip code that I want to select from the drop-down here, I can do that, or I can search for a specific zip code. So if I want to view 94903, I can make that search. And I can select that result here from my search drop-down, and then I can click Apply. And it will zoom me to that zip code and highlight it on the map and then show me that zip code attribution here in the query results. I will clear those and we'll click Reset, and I'll go back. And one thing I do want to make note of is that these queries will still run if the map layer is not turned on, but it won't actually show you that layer visibly on the map. It will just show you an outline of it with that highlighted outline. So if you want to actually run your query and have that layer live, you're going to have to make sure that that layer is turned on in the map layers. So let's say I want to run my sanitary district attribute filter here. I need to make sure that those sanitary districts are turned on. They're right here in the administrative districts group layer. So I'll turn that group layer on and the sanitary districts on. And now you can see they're on the map. And I'll go back to my query and I'll set my sanitary district query to, let's say, Novato. And I'll click apply. Again, that's going to zoom me to that sanitary district and highlight it on the map and show me some of the attribution tied to that layer. And if I clear results, you can see that layer is turned on. So you can still see the layer here beyond that highlight that came from the queries tool here. So I'll reset that. And then we'll do the same thing with water districts. I'll come in and I'll make sure that water districts is turned on. Again, that's in that administrative districts group layer. And here's water districts, so I'll turn that on. And I'll go back to my query. And let's say I want to see the North Marin Water District. And I'll click apply. That's going to zoom me to that. It looks like it's a multi-part polygon here. There's a few different areas that cover the North Marin Water District. It's going to highlight all of those and then show me that attribution. And then I can clear those results again there. And lastly, if I wanted to view fire stations, I can choose that from this drop-down list here. Let's say I want to go to Station 1 Novato Fire. I can click that. It's going to zoom me directly to that point. Now here's a prime example of what it's going to look like if I don't have that layer turned on, but I run the query. It's still going to show me that highlight of where that point is. But as soon as I clear my query results, that point's not on the map. So that's where it can be helpful to turn that layer on prior to running your query if you want to view that information after you run your query. Go ahead and reset that query. The next tool I'd like to discuss is the Bookmarks Tool. Now, the Bookmarks Tool is a very simplistic tool designed to help you navigate to specific bookmarked areas on the map. So if I zoom to this home bookmark, that's going to bring me out to that default map extent. It'd be basically the same thing as selecting this default map view. But if I wanted to zoom directly to Belvedere, I could select that bookmark. Or if I wanted to pop quick to Sausalito, I could do that. Or if I wanted to go to, let's say, Inverness, I could select that bookmark and run directly to that pre-built bookmarked area. So a super simplistic way to just pop around the map to a specific area of interest. Next, I'd like to go over the Basemap tool. So I'll select that tool here from the header menu. And what the Basemap tool does is it controls that map and the color behind all of the layers that are displayed on the application here. So let's say I want to view some imagery behind all my layers. I can select this Firefly imagery base map, and that's going to show me aerial imagery behind all of those map layers. So that can be really helpful if I want to view specific houses or neighborhoods or you know what something might look like actually on the ground instead of that default gray base map. And as you can see in the Basemap tool here, we've got several different options of imagery and non-imagery base maps. I'll just select this light gray canvas as our base map here because that's the default base map. The next tool I'd like to go over is the measurement tool. So I'll select that measurement icon there to enter the tool. And here we've got a tool where you can measure distances or areas. To measure a distance, I'll select this measure distance icon at the top left of the tool. And once I've selected that, the menu is going to say start to measure by clicking in the map to place your first point. So let's say I want to measure the distance of the front of this 18 Locust Ave tax parcel. You can see I hover over other layers in the map and it will let me select either a line feature or a vertex. So let's select that vertex there on the southwest corner of 18 Locust Ave, and I'll just follow that front line of the tax parcel, and now we can snap to that vertex, and I'll just double click to end my measurement. So I've double clicked and that measurement held there. So it looks like the front side of 18 Locust Ave's parcel is about 53.5 feet. Now the measurement unit is going to default to imperial, which means under 1,000 feet, it's going to default to feet. And once I get over a measurement of 1,000 feet, it's going to miles. However, if I select that unit dropdown, I can select from any of these measurement units here. So let's say I wanted to measure this in meters. I could select meters, and that's going to update that measurement to meters here on the map and in my measurement tool here where it says distance. And if I wanted to start a new measurement, new line measurement, I would select new measurement here. Or if I want to clear my measurement, I can select this clear measurement button, and that will get rid of it. Next, I'll go over measuring an area. And to do that, I'll just select this measure area icon here within the measurement tool. And I'm going to measure the area of this 18 Locust Ave tax parcel. I will start my measurement at the northwest corner of the parcel. Select that vertex. I'll work my way down that western border and select that southwestern corner and southeast corner. And then I'll double click in that northeast corner to complete my area measurement. And you can see that area measurement held. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see my measurement here. It looks like it's just over 7,000 square feet. Again, that measurement unit is going to default to imperial, which is going to hold at square feet for anything less than 1 million square feet. And then once you get over 1 million square feet on your area measurement, it is going to default that measurement to square miles. But again, if I want to change that measurement unit on my measurement, I can select the drop down here in the unit. And let's say I want to see this in acres. I can select acres. And you can see it's updated that label of my measurement on the map and here in the measurement tool to acres instead of square feet. And one neat thing about the area measurement is that it also gives you a perimeter measurement of your area. And that is going to always show you in feet what the perimeter is. Again, if I wanted to measure out another area measurement, I could just select new measurement and it would remove my current measurement but keep this tool enabled. Or if I want to completely clear my measurement, I can select clear measurement. You can exit out of the tool by selecting close here. The next tool I'd like to go over is the print tool. So I'll select that print icon in the header here and begin my print. And this tool is designed for just quick prints that are used for reference. So it's not an extremely powerful tool, but it can be helpful as kind of almost a screen grab of your current application view. So I'll walk through that tool here. First, we've got several different templates. You can see A3, A4, letter, tabloid, and map only. Those A3s, A4s, letter, tabloid are the paper sizes. And then we've got landscape and portrait, which is the layout of that printout. So landscape's going to be kind of that wide view, and portrait is going to be that north to south view. We'll keep that default at A3 landscape, and then change my title here to test print. And then I can either print that out and keep it super simple, or I can go into this advanced menu here to set some further settings on my print. We'll keep this print extent at my current map extent because that's what I want to convey in my print. We do have the ability to add an author and copyright. Now, this is a place where if you need to add like your name or something specific in the author field here, we can just put test, but that's where you would add your name. And then copyright is a place where you can add any disclaimers or just general information that you might want to include in your test printout. So I'll just type in test print here, and then I'll show you where those two fields print out actually on the final printout. Next, we'll include the legend. That'll show us a legend of all of the layers that are currently turned on in the application. We'll include a north arrow. We'll keep that scale bar unit to miles, but we could change it to these different unit measurements. We'll keep that default print quality at 96. You could up that DPI if you wanted it to be better quality, and then we'll include attributes by default. So I'll just click print here to run my print. And some people can get a little confused as to where their print goes once they select print, but you can see there's a results tab here in the print menu. And we've got a spinning wheel, which is showing that my test print is currently loading and it's not finished yet. And now once it's finished, you'll see that test print or whatever you named your printout here show up. So I'll select that. Here we can see my title of test print, that current area that I'm viewing. We've got that legend, so we can see these are tax parcels that I'm currently looking at. If there was a community boundary within this printout, it would show as kind of that gold color, and we'd know what that is, and then same thing with the legal boundary. So this is going to carry over any live layers that are turned on when you print out your application will be included on your map printout and in that layer legend there. We've got our scale bar, our north arrow, and then here's where we've got that author and copyright information that's going to show up. So the author will show up at the top and the copyright info will be at the bottom, just here in the bottom right-hand side of your printout. Now you might notice that that printout just opened in a new browser tab, which is what the tool does by default. So if you need to save your print as a PDF or a PNG or whatever it might be, you can just right-click that printout here in the browser and select Save Image As, or copy image and paste it into whatever you might be sending for a message or email or something like that. And then to exit out, just select X. One thing to note with these printouts is that they do not carry over between application settings. So if I were to exit the MarinMap Viewer here and then come back in another session, my prints from that previous session would not carry over. So this is only going to show me the list of my printouts that I've got in my current map session. I'll remove that and then go back to print template and exit the print tool. Next, I'd like to discuss the select tool. Now the select tool by default is going to show all layers that are turned on in the application currently as selectable. And let's say for my example here that I only want to select from the tax parcels layer. I can come into this menu here and I can toggle all. So now no layers are selectable. And then I'll turn on my tax parcels, and that will make it so tax parcels are the only layer that's on in the application that is selectable. And then I've got several different ways to run a selection of layers. You can select by rectangle, by lasso, circle, line, or point. So I'll select by lasso here. I'm going to click that select by whatever it is that I chose button to enable that. And I'll just create my lasso here by clicking and holding and drawing that lasso shape. We'll say I want to select these 5 parcels here. And I'll double click to complete my selection, and you'll see it flashed. Those parcels are also highlighted on the map, and then it's also showing me that I've got a selection of 5 parcels here within the tool. So once you've selected whatever layer it is that you're selecting on the map, you've got a few options of what you can do with it. We've got this Actions button here next to your selection. So I can either calculate statistics, which basically just gives me access to any attribute field carried within my selected layer. So if I wanted to choose, let's just say living units from these tax parcels, got a total number of values of 5. Gives me the sum of those values, the minimum, the maximum, average, and standard deviation. So you can run some quick statistics based on your selection. You can zoom to your selection. So you can see I selected that and it zoomed me directly to that selection of my 5 parcels. You can show them on the map, which they're already set to do, so it's not going to really look much different, but you can see they get a little bit brighter there. We can show the pop-up. Now that's going to show me that docked pop-up. So if I undock the pop-up here and then reopen my selection tool, you can see I've got all 5 of those text parcels pop-ups showing here. So I can just shift between those by clicking that next button, and it's going to zoom me to that tax parcel with my little arrow here so I can see which tax parcels pop-up that is. And then I can exit out there. And then lastly, we do have the ability to export our selection. So we've got several different export options here. Commonly, these get exported to CSV in spreadsheet format. Some people will export them out to shapefiles if they need to select a specific map layer and export that out to be used in other GIS applications or software. And then we can clear our selection by choosing clear selection here. And that's going to remove my selection. And then one neat thing about this tool as well is if we selected multiple map layers here and we wanted to clear our entire selection of all of the layers we've selected, you can choose this clear all button, and that will remove all layer selections that you've created with your select tool there. And to close that out, I will just choose close here. The next tool I'd like to discuss is the share tool. So I'll click into that share icon there. Right away, we've got a short URL here that you can copy to your machine's clipboard. So if you don't want to share the entirety of the full URL, there is this short URL that's a little more manageable that you can copy and paste into another browser, and it will bring you to this application. We do have the ability to select embed here. Embed is going to give us this HTML code. So if you wanted to embed this application into another site or another application with that HTML, you can enter embed here and then choose copy, and then you can paste that into your whatever else you need to embed this application into. We also have the ability to create a QR code. So if someone is only viewing these applications on a mobile device, you can make it really easy for them to just scan the QR code and access the application that way. If I were to select email here, it would open up a blank email with my machine's default email provider, and I could email out a link to this application. And then you do have the ability to share this application directly on socials via Facebook, X, Pinterest, or LinkedIn here. The next tool I'd like to go over is the data table. So select that table icon there, and we will open up the data download table. The first thing I'll mention is that this table does have all layers that are available within this application shown in tabular format. So let's say for this example that I want to find the tax parcels layer. This dropdown is sorted alphabetically, so I'll go down to the T's and find tax parcels, and I'll find that tax parcels table. One thing we can do here by default is sort ascending or descending by clicking on the column header. So you can see I'm sorting in different fashions here just by clicking the header. And then I can also select a specific tax parcel and that will zoom the map behind me to that tax parcel and then show it selected on the map. Then if I come back into my table view, I can also select multiple tax parcels. So if I need to run a selection here, you can just click another row to select multiple tax parcels or whatever layer you're looking at. And to deselect those, you just click it again. So I can go back to my single selection just by re-clicking that row. And once I've selected a table row in whatever layer I'm looking at, we've got the ability to show just that selected row. And then I can also show all table records again by just reselecting that button. I can also clear my selection. So if I'm done with whatever selection I've made, I can clear that selection just by selecting that clear selection button. In my table, I can also show and hide columns. So if I want to view only a very specific number of columns that my data is showing, I can turn several of those columns off. So if I wanted to view just my property ID, use code, and use description of my tax parcels, I can do that. And then I can turn other rows back on if need be. Then I can view only my selected columns. And then I can clear my entire selection and start from new if I wanted to. And then I also have my actions here. And in my actions, I've got the ability to set a filter. So in this filter action, to set it, you actually have to enable it by choosing that toggle switch there. But then I can also add a clause here, and what that clause does is that filters data based on any field that is carried within that attribute data. So if I wanted to view all tax parcels where the mailing city is equal to, let's say, Agora Hills, I could select that, and it's going to filter out all of those tax parcels. It looks like there's only one tax parcel in the whole county that mailing city is set to Agora Hills. So if you have one specific data field you want to set a filter on, you can set that, or you can add multiples. You can add a clause set and filter based on multiple fields of the data. And you can also just remove those by exiting out or deselecting that filter. And it will show you all of the data again. And then finally, we do have the ability to export this data as well to CSV format is the most common here. So if you want to view this in a spreadsheet format, you can export it out to CSV. One thing to note with these exports is if you do have a data, they're set on the data via the set filter tool that I just went over, that will carry over to your export. It can be very powerful, because you can filter things out that you want to see and then export just those. Or if you want to view an export of all of the data, just make sure that you do not have a filter set on the data and you can export all of it out. I'll go ahead and exit the download table. And lastly, we do have this open help menu button. This is just going to access that help menu that first showed as a splash screen when we entered the application. And then this help window does also have the ability to go straight to the data download table that I just showed. So we can exit out of that, and now our help menu will be gone. With that, that's all I had for the instructional video today. I hope everything I've gone over is helpful and that you find the MemberMap Viewer to be a useful application. Thank you very much for your time.